welcome everyone to our today's webinar. My name is Amir. I'm the country manager for Saudi Arabia at Titan Cloud. Thank you everyone for joining us today and just having the time wherever you are. We will have 1 hour webinar session. Our today's topic for this webinar, which is one of the most important topic for every fuel operators company, which is variance control and tank gauge calibration, which is everyone needs to know if they are profiting or losing money or fuel. So just quick introduction on our speakers. We are having today, we have some experts in the fuel industry. We have Sabur from Saudi Arabia. He is from Wafi Energy, which is the Shell license company in Saudi Arabia. He has expert in not only Saudi Arabia, in multiple countries in the region, which is UAE and Oman also. So I believe he will share a lot of expertise and advice for all the attendees for today. We also have Mr. Isa Al Musa. He is the Chief Commercial Officer and partner for Be Online Kuwaiti and Al Musa projects. He has more than 20 years of expert in wet stock management, fuel automation, and monitoring the automation services here in the Gulf. So I believe he is one of the leading people for in the region for everyone to implement the new fuel solutions, which is automation and wet stock management. We also have our senior solution consultant at Titan Cloud, Mr. Gurav. He has more than 13 years of experience in wet stock management, and he helps out companies to implement variance control solution and wet stock management. Thank everyone for joining us for today's webinar, and let's hope the best for. So just for everyone attending here, just a quick housekeeping notes. You can ask any question during the session. We will try to answer all your questions during the session. We will have one section by the end of this session for Q&A. So feel free to ask any question that you have. If you cannot see, if you don't have the panel for Q&A, you can see in the bottom right of your screen, you can see the chat. Just press on it, you will open the panel for Q&A. Ask any question at any time. We will try to answer all the questions. And for the Arabic speaker, I will just say it in Arabic for anyone. You can also ask a question in Arabic. للأسئلة أي أحد عنده سؤال معين يقدر يسأل السؤال في الصفحة الخاصة بالQ&A. بس حطوا سؤالك، حتى لو كان سؤال تكتبه ممكن تكتبه بالعربي. أنا ممكن أترجم السؤال للسبيكرز ونسأل الأسئلة. So everyone, just if we couldn't be able to answer your question during the session, don't worry. We will send you an email for the answer of your questions, or we can reach out to you after the session if you don't have the time. And also you can download some more information and the presentation in the handout. I think that's clear just for the session. So just to start, before anything, just a quick background on who Titan Cloud is and why we are talking about variance control as a Titan Cloud. So Titan Cloud is one of the leading companies for wet stock management and fuel management software. We have over than 95,000 sites across the world. We monitor 50% of the US fuel market. We also monitor almost 99% of the Australian market, and we are well placed around the world for fuel management solutions. That's a quick background on why on Titan Cloud and why we are here to talk about variance control. Just a quick agenda. Just this is the agenda for today's session, which is we will talk about variance control and 10 gauge calibration and the challenges for the Middle East operators company for that for in this topic. So we will start talking about variance control and what are the challenges for in the region and addressing variances and how to use the software as a solution to control your variances. Just we will start with the basic on what is variances exactly. So just basically variances, the variance is the difference between the book inventory and what you should have in your inventory as amount and what actually you have in your inventory. So the difference between the book inventory and the actual inventory, when you differentiate this, you will have the variances. For example, just an example for that, if you bought 50,000 liter of fuel, so you are when when you do the measurement, you are expecting 50,000 liter inside your tank, but when you do the measurement, you find out you have 49,000. So in this case, you will have 1,000 liter of variances. So here, this is basically what is variances is. Usually, it could be loss or gain, but mostly it's lost. It's gain in some cases when you have, let's say, water comes inside your tanks, you will see some, or some also measurement error, you will see some gain variances. So variances, there are three types of variances, we say, which is a real variances, which is an actual physical loss or gain. This is it could be happen because of leakage or theft or sometimes shortened deliveries. And there's the other type, which is it's not an actual loss, which is we call it apparent variances, which is a measurement or reporting error. It could be caused by tank chart error or temperature change, or any measurement error. And the third type, which is hidden variances, which could be caused by some manipulation by your supervisor or the manpower that you have at your company. So they can do some manual change at the ATG, or they can input the delivery record wrong, or sometimes they will do it in purpose to just to cover some issues at the site. So this is basically what is variances and what are the type of variances that we have. Just why variances is important and why we need to focus on variances. So that's because in this region especially, they are rely on the current practice for this region, which is they are relying on heavily on the manual methods, which is using dipstick, or sometimes they rely sometimes they do a method we call it tank emptying as a baseline. So for them, because they don't have any visibility on the tank, and also there is no tank chart for the tanks, they rely on emptying the tank to a baseline, which is, for example, when there is the STB are not able to pump any fuel, so they will use that point as a baseline, and they will calculate and do calculate the variances and do the reconciliation by calculating the difference between the sales and the BOL. So that's basically it. So these methods are time consuming, usually because it is not accurate. So there will be a lot of hidden variances you cannot be able to detect. And when there is huge variances, there are usually slow reaction or to solve this, let's say, loss or variances. And one of the most important reasons why we should have variance control which is because we have all the tools. So most of the companies are already invested in ATG systems and automations, etc., but they cannot use it or cannot rely on it because the they think there is some inaccurate data, and using various control system, we will be able to give you calibrate your ATG system. This is one, and also make sure that all the data that you have it's accurate. All the data that you have from your system are accurate. So as a result, so a lot of companies are missing the real value of having an automation. So why it matters? So when you have a various control system or with stock management system, so you will be able to detect issue early. This is one. Any leakages or shortened deliveries or any theft, you will be able to detect it as early as possible. Second, you will be reacting faster to stop the losses or stop the cause of the variances, and you will be able to reduce the manual work and the downtime for all your sites. So, and also one of the most important things that you will be able to have having a various control system, which is to be compliant with the regulators. Here, for example, here in Saudi, we have two. We have MOE, Minister of Energy, and we have also National Center of Environmental Compliances. So, what are these operators are looking for? So they want you to have accurate measurement for fuel deliveries and stock levels. They want you to have like regulator, a tank calibration and also dispenser calibration all the time. They want you to have a monitor. So you want you to monitor all your sites from one platform, and this is what you can have using the various control systems. And for the National Center of Environmental Compliances, because Titan Cloud are EBA certified company, that we are using SIR as a certified technology for environmental compliances, that you will be also complying with National Center of Environmental Compliances. So these are the main thing that you can have if you have a various control system. So you will be able to environmentally comply. Regarding accounting, you will have accurate data reconciliation for your accounting. For your maintenance, you will maximize the uptime for all your sites and operate at the lowest cost. And mainly for operation, you will have accurate delivery and accurate sales. So these are, I think, the most important things for fuel operators to focus on and to control their variances. So I will give the mic to one of our speakers, which is Mr. Sabur. He will share why wet stock management are important for, especially for Saudi Arabia, and what are the challenges. Mr. Sabur,
Thank you, Amir.
you can join us there.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you, Amir. Thank you very much for the introduction earlier, and also, giving a brief on what is the variance. I'm working right now in Saudi Arabia again, so it's been exciting times. Let me give you a background of let me give the audience a background of the industry so far. So Saudi Arabia is 1,600 plus minus stations operating, and there are around 67 licensed MOE licensed companies. Um, these 67 companies currently hold 40 to 45% or max 50% of the market share. So we are talking about somewhere around 3,500 stations still operated by individual uh, owners, which are not licensed by MOE. So there is a pressure from MOE to bring those unlicensed operators to the licensed company operators. But what is the challenge in the market? Challenge in the market is that these most of these gas stations are not operated in a proper way with the proper control on the variances. So variances, where do they occur? This I will try to brief the audience about. The first thing is when the tanker arrives on the station. So we all know that in Saudi Arabia, the delivery is only from the Aramco, but there are various distributors, various private companies which are managing their distribution. They take the fuel from the Aramco depot and supply to the customer fuel station. Now, when the tanker arrives, we know that during transportation there is temperature effect, there is movement effect on the fuel. So the volume received from the depot may not be equal to what volume is actually coming on the station. There could be a theft in between. So what usually people do is that they compare the bill of landing bill with the tanker dip. Now, these tankers are mostly not calibrated as well. So even if you are taking a dip reading for the tanker, you may or may not have the same volume as per the bill of landing. So that's one point where the volume can contradict with the data you are recording. Number two is that now the tanker dispenses the fuel into into the underground fuel tank. Now this underground fuel tank can have an ATG or can may not have an ATG. If you have an ATG, that's good. It will give you a certain reading, but again, that depends if your tank is calibrated, if your ATG is calibrated or not. We don't know, and we all know that over the period of time, tank behavior change. Underground fuel tank, they change their behavior. There could be an inclination, there could be a tilt, there could be dents, there could be leaks, or various other factors due to groundwater uprising as well. So the ATG has to be calibrated regularly. That's one challenge. Then again, the second challenge in the tanker reading also comes that when they try to take the dip, they take dip the very moment when they empty the tank. So fuel needs some time to settle. Fuel needs some temperature adjustment. So these are all the technical points where you record variances in the data you are capturing from the various storage points. Now the next step is that once you have the tank level measurement from the ATG, you will record that bill of landing has received this much volume, tanker actually had this much volume, but ATG recorded this much value. I have seen in my past experience, even in other markets, that these three readings seldomly they correlate to certain level of accuracy. There are always differences. So the retailers, the markets where the retailers are operating the stations, like the dealers, they get panicked. They observe, they complain, start complaining about the losses. So then there comes another, countermeasure. They start installing mobile fuel measurement devices on the downside of the tanker lorry decon station. This is either flow meters, which are mobile, or LC meters. Again, these devices need to be calibrated against some, you know,
You
reputable
have the
company.
same issue.
So, so there is a fourth data reading there, which is interestingly also varying to all these other three data readings. Now we are lost. What to do? So again, going down the line, then you are dispensing the fuel. Now, if you are dispensing the fuel, your lines are leak protected. There is a pressure line leak detection system, or there is a mechanical leak detection system, or there is no leak detection system. We don't know. So, at the end of the shift, when they reconcile the data, what is sold and what was received, if there are variances, they don't have any answer where this volume lost has gone. Usually, the evaporation losses are for more gas are less than 1%, -1%, but usually they are more, especially in summers, they are more. And especially if your vent are not pressurized, pressure valve installed welds, which are normally called pressure vents, or you have loose tank fittings. So basically, you're allowing the fuel to evaporate through all these loose fittings. So these are various things which reflect at the end of the shift, and there are some operators which are not even accounting for these variances during the shift closure. So you get these kind of these variances visibility during the financial closure, during wet stock management reports, which some companies do 24-hour basis, some companies do for 30 days when they are reconciling the whole financial data. So the point is that when you know there are variances, and these variances, if they are regular, it means there is a regular problem in the system. And if they are erratic, it means there is a leak in the system or there is a malfunction. You don't know. You are clueless. And companies try to settle all these kind of variances against the financial settlement. That's it. They close the books. So if we move to the next slide, I will try to explain. Yeah. So what are the challenges? How do companies try to cope up, and what could be improved, and what is the area still need a lot of focus? So as you mentioned, Amir, there is now good thing is that during recent years there is a organization. It's called National Center for Environmental Compliance. Previously, it was called EPA, as it's been called in other markets in US and etc. So their job is to make sure that the fuel station business is running leak proof. There are no ground contaminations, but still there is a lot of gap. What they do is that the current practice is that they will come on the station. Depending on the size of the station, they will do 2 to 3 or 4 bores and record the soil contamination report. That is not giving you exact leak uh, location. I'll give you a very recent example. I just came across 2 weeks ago, and it was a very bizarre case. One of my colleague asked me to for the advice. So when I investigated, what they found was that there was no leak, there was no losses reported, there was no losses reported in the system. Everything was running fine. It was pretty new station, opened 3 months ago. But all of a sudden, since it was new station, so they installed all the devices for detecting the vapors.
Sorry.
Even the sniffer pipes had the vapor detecting device. So the sniffer pipe sensor started to give alarm. And when they put in the fuel paste, they installed the fuel paste on the dipstick and put it in the sniffer pipe. They saw traces of fuel coming on the dipstick. Now it means there is a leak, but
What?
system didn't record. It was top-notch system in the market. Top-notch devices. Even there is a tank calibration mechanism. Even the tanks were calibrated and the ATG was calibrated, but there was no record of these losses. They investigated, that did the pressure test of the tanks and the fuel lines. Everything was okay. At the end, they found that the delivery line, the remote fill line, had some leak. Now, NCEC will be never able to find that leak because they don't do the boring inside the tank pits. They always do the boring outside the tank pits. This was inside the tank pit. So probably there was a joint from the 4-inch delivery line coming to the tank. There was leakage somewhere there. And the wet stock management didn't recorded any loss. It was a classic case. So it gives you an idea that how important it that there should be an intelligent system working in the background, which could tell you there is a leak either in before the tank or after the tank. So it was actually before the tank. So the system was not even recording it. They were just compensating these losses against the evaporation losses. So the tolerance was zero point 0.5 to zero point 0.7 to zero point 0.8 and zero point 0.9. They didn't bother. They said, okay, it's fine. So this is one of the phenomena. Moving on, there are technical factors, as I briefly explained, that pressure vents are not installed. So vents are always open, and in summers it's a free vent. So all the fuel which is evaporating is going into the atmosphere. So no control over that. And again, the fittings are not leak tight. So this is very common, very common. You will find you even the biggest operators. You open their tank sumps, you will find LEL reading, which is not only dangerous for the environment but also for the safety of the station itself. And we have seen incidents when there is just a matter of there need to be a spark and it's a fire or a boom hazard. Then there are operational gaps. So operational gaps is that there are still people, they are not cautious about the leak. If there are loose fittings, they don't report the leaks. If they get, if they see the under the dispenser, there is wetness on the shutter walls or wetness in the tank fitting, they don't report it. So that's also a problem. Market is totally unaudited. If we come to the fourth point, no authority is auditing these things. There is no critical equipment inspection mechanism, either from the third party or within the operators itself. So the things get unchecked from the third eye as well. And then there are lack of penalties in case because there is no check, so there are no penalties. So because of all these factors, the operators they don't have any interest on improving the system or recording the variances. and be sensitive about the leaks. Uh, Very few people know what is LOPC here in this market. They don't care about it. Secondary containment, primary containment, they don't have any concept about it. So that's a lack of awareness, as well as they want to avoid the cost. They don't want to go with the double wall tanks. They don't want to go with the double wall pipings, PLLD installations. Rest assured, software is a next level. So it takes a lot of effort to educate even in some very good qualified companies to their management, that why do they need to invest on a system which can give you accurate variance reports, and then you should have a countermeasure to address those variance, which will result in your financial profitability as well, not only operational efficiency. So this is how the market is working. So I'll
Yeah,
just close it.
just a quick question, Mr. Sabur. So since you have experience in multiple countries and multiple, I think, companies also, they operate. I think every company that you went in, they operate differently.
Yeah.
So from your perspective, which which the best practices that you saw in your experience, like for variance control?
I would say I had seen. Look, if we compare the Gulf region, I think UAE is the best market to be taken as a benchmark. But believe me, in UAE as well, uh, there are giant operators, but still they lack control over these variances. But there are some the authorities are stringent over there, so that's a benefit, that in UAE the control from the authorities is very stringent. They audit the wet stock management reports. They check if the leak detection systems are installed, if the ATGs are working fine. So at least there is a pressure from the law implementing agencies. In Oman also, the market has developed a lot. In Oman, the market is have become very sensitive about the environmental protection. There have been lawsuits if there are leakages, if there are no countermeasures or no corrective measures are done. Companies have been fined a lot in Oman, so they are improved a lot. Saudi is still is lacking in that domain, so they need to go up far. They need to hire people in these companies like NCEC, or maybe civil defense, or maybe some company which can only look after what system is being installed by the companies, and they should regulate it. They should audit it regularly. They should ask the companies to share the wet stock management reports. I'll tell you very very interesting fact. In Saudi, there is a business model. It's called franchise, or or profit sharing. You know
Yeah,
that very well. Now, investor is renting out a station to a operator, only the fuel canopy. So the fuel canopy, dispensers, tanks are rented out. All the NFR is operated by somebody else. Now there is a arrangement that whatever the fuel is sold, 20% will be going to the operator and 80% will go to the investor, because he has invested on the infrastructure. These companies don't know what sort of piping and tanks he has installed. Even though they do the due diligence, they check, but these do not mean that there is a quality installation. Now, if there is arrangement that there is an 80/20, so the every volume sold, every liter sold, 3 halala goes to the company, and 15 halala, 12 halala goes to the operator. So he's just concerned about, okay, whatever the volume you have sold, you give me the money. Even the investor doesn't audit that what
yeah.
actually the company sold. I asked even an investor, do you actually go into the wet stock management reports and do you check how much they have sold actually? He said, no, I don't care about it. I am getting money more than my rental expectation, so I'm fine with that.
As
So
long
rest
as
assured,
it doesn't care. Okay.
yes. So it's a very interesting market. People don't care about it. So rest assured, the regulatory authorities is another subject. The guy who has invested and the guy who is earning money doesn't care about it. So I told him, maybe you can earn more money. Maybe the company is hiding the numbers. Maybe you can earn more. He said, I don't care about it. So that's an example. Secondly, also in Saudi, the pump nozzle calibration tolerance limit is set to 1.5% plus minus. In UAE, it is zero point 0.5. In Oman, it is zero point 0.5. So again, since there is a larger tolerance, and this tolerance always in the negative form, so it sets off certain volume of the variances as well, which is going in evaporation or the system leak. So that's
Yeah,
also something.
But I believe, yeah, I think all these systems are new for, and this regulation are new for the Saudi market, but they are, I think they are developing a lot,
Moving,
and I think they are
they are
learning a
moving in
lot.
that
Yeah, they are
direction very
moving in
slowly.
the right direction. Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Sabur. I think you like it was really really helpful, and a lot of advices was there for all the attendees here. So moving on with the Gurav, like he's our senior consultant for the solutions. So you have the mic, Gurav.
Yep. Thanks, Amir. And great insight, Mr. Samar. I think it was great to hear some of the country challenges, how people are managing their wet stock, and sounds like it is an education journey. So we're here to help. We're here to help the market and get that education in as well. And with this webinar, this is our first step. So what you talked about is what the industry is expecting, right? So the industry is expecting in some ways what was ordered, what was in the trailer, and what was delivered to more or less balance out. But the reality of the world is different, as you described as well. So the reality of the world is you never have like inventory balancing out. There's a other variety of factors that actually come in. Temperature and evaporation, especially in the Saudi market, is one of the biggest ones. Then there are other factors as well. There could be errors in the terminals which are not which are potentially going unnoticed. You talked about some of the tolerances on pump meters. So meter drift could be one factor that is also playing in. And then there are other factors like short deliveries and wrong delivery practices as well. So this is where we come in as Titan Cloud, and we help our customers actually and drive the variances down. Now, one of the bigger components that was mentioned is tank gauge calibration. Now, like you said, uh, there are variety of factors that may come into a tank. So what I have here on the screen is essentially a little bit exaggerated example, but if you look at that infinite tank on the top, that is basically a line failure. So whereby there is a lining, secondary lining within the tank that has failed over time. Now, what it would cause is different indentations and different dents within the fueling systems. Now, the the default calibration may not account all these variations which are coming over time. Then you do not know what's going on under the ground and on the tank. Over time, the tank can have a tilt. It can have other factors come in. So a variety of imperfections. And how do you cater for that? And that's where we actually come in. So we have something called a digital tank chart, which is our internal proprietary um, calibration process. The way it works is we can capture high frequency data. So it would be high frequency inventory data, all transactions, temperature information, and delivery information. And using that data, what we do is we can basically look at the range of how the tank was getting exercised, and we can come in and we can, based on the data that we're seeing, we can start calibrating and provide a better calibration for the tank gauge. Now, given how the tank is exercised, the process can take anywhere between 60 to 90 days, and we can calibrate a tank. Now, what you would think is, what is the impact of that? So the impact of that is essentially, if I go to the next slide, it is in the variances, and we can push the tank chart or the strapping chart to a gauge as well, so that you see the impacts. Now, if you look here in this example, what we are actually capturing is, if the data was coming from a raw tank gauge, that is the orange line. You can see how much it fluctuates and how it's performing. And the variances, if you're relying only on the variances coming from tank gauge, it can be higher. So in this example, the variance is actually on the left, so it's around minus 400 liters. But when we have calibrated with our digital tank chart, the impact is much lower. So you can see the blue line, whereby it is much smoother performance. You have a tighter control, and you're getting a better picture of what's actually happening in the tank, and the variance is reduced by almost 200 liters. So that's how we actually come in, and we can work with our customers to help with the process and show an impact. Um, the other impact of tank gauge calibration is on how the network sees these tank gauge calibrations. Now, the way the Saudi market is operating, the lot of issues with BOL reconciliation, which is your bill of lading reconciliation. We can help tighten these thresholds. So where we come in is we do have a matching process. We run our algorithms and we match different deliveries against what was ordered. We would take into account some of the temperature variances as well. And in this example, this is an example from a customer whereby the amount of deliveries they were getting with our tank gauge calibration and our uh, algorithms, we were able to tighten the threshold. So if you look at the lowest number, the which is from 449 to 25, that is essentially the amount of investigation that were needed. So we took the noise out of the system. We we pushed it for a tighter threshold, and we helped the customer with better investigations and results as well with BOL reconciliation. And tank gauge calibration is a critical part of that, because you are essentially, with any calibration, you're looking at how much fuel is in the tank, and if you can improve that with an accuracy, it has a downstream effect as well. So we do have in the market mix of manual sites as well. So the tank gauge calibration that I talked about earlier relied on transactional data, but we do have a solution for the manual sites as well. So what we can do is we can collect the daily sales, the inventory, the deliveries, and we can collect it via different methods. And once that data is collected, what we do is we run it through what Amir mentioned as well, is statistical inventory reconciliation. That is our engine that would power both the manual sites as well as the automated sites. And with that engine, we are able to find leaks faster and um, provide benefits to the customers. Now, we would, even on for manual sites, you can indicate, there are calibration errors, and where we come in and where the expertise come in is, if you have our managed solutions, we can help you guide with our tried and tested loss investigations as well. So where that root cause is, and we come in as consultants to help you find that, and work with a customer to identify leaks. The other uh, root cause impact of our system processing is how you start looking at your industry, and how you start looking at your reconciliation at a month end, for example. Now you've Mr. Sabu mentioned there are cases whereby the owners don't know what are they selling. So we, since we have a software, we can do the reconciliation, and we can actually show where the actual sales were, what was the temperature variance, what was accounted in terms of any adjustments which were going on, and essentially drive down the variance. And taking that noise out is critical. So we take take the noise out and show the real variances that the customer actually needs to look at. Um, Moving on to the next slide. So what I wanted to show you is the true business impact as well of what we are doing. Now, if I look at what I've talked about, which was tank charts. Now, and the calibration and the write-off. So the write-off in the industry that Mr. Sabu mentioned is as well is around 1%. Now, that 1% for a high throughput site could be a lot. So in this example that we have, the customer was essentially writing off 3.5 million. That is a huge number. And where what we can do with our software is we can improve the tank charts. That improvement itself helps with the write-off. Then we take out some of the temperature variances as well. Again, that has an impact on the write-off, and it improves the productivity as well, and how you look at data. With the BOL reconciliation and automating it, getting tighter thresholds in place, again, you can investigate less and have an impact on your how you operate. And where we have the most value is also we identify leaks and other issues which are going on within the site. So the example highlighted on the screen is we've significantly reduced by almost 3 million, close to 3 million write-off per year for the customer. They were spending a huge amount of hours per year on such issues. So we can help take that burden off the customer, and with that burden off, the customer can actually concentrate on the real operational issues. They can concentrate on the real things that actually matter for the forecourt operators.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Well,
Good morning, Mr. Isa. So,
first of all, thank you for having us on this great webinar and the chance to actually hear from experts in the field. Now, the case in Kuwait is a bit different. I mean, in Kuwait, we have around 160 stations divided between three operators, where the government operates around half of that, and the other half is maintained by two private sector operators. Now, due to the fact that the number of stations in the or the sites in Kuwait is actually less than the what's required to fulfill the country's demand, we have cases where we have stations with very high throughput, where certain product would require 6 or 7 or even 8 deliveries per day for a high throughput stations. On the other hand, there are basically products that has a very low demand, and where it would probably have one delivery per week or maybe one delivery per 2 weeks. So essentially, the problem here is a bit different, and the fact that the stations are still operating on semi old school kind of a concept, where they would rely on the manual dipstick as not as a gauging manner, but more or less as a comparison with the electronic type of equipment, where the way they would calibrate the tank gauging system, that they will compare it to the manual dipstick, and the manual dipstick reading will always prevail in their sense. So that creates an issue. Now, there, if I take a little bit back, the essential root issue is the non-availability of proper tank charts for the tanks, because a lot of the tanks are very old. Some of them have been basically been manufactured 20 or 30 years ago. They've been changing and upgrading the tanks, but even with the new tanks, and some of them been manufactured locally, do not have proper strapping data or actually tank gauge. So now, if you base the configuration on an initial tank chart with issues, then it will probably snowballs into issues later on. Now, moving into using different tools to ensure that the calibration works fine later on, still there is always a case with the high throughput products. The calibration with the generation of the charts works faster. On the low throughput, it takes longer. And I had one interesting case on one of the sites where uh, I can see variance. We have a day of loss, then a day of gain. And I've asked the station supervisor, and I told, so why haven't you been flagging? He said, because, today there is a loss, tomorrow there will be a gain, and the station will adjust itself. I told him it's not really logical to actually assume this. So the biggest challenge is basically to convince manpower to actually go and rely on the software based solutions. Now, again, with AI coming into the picture, and how the model is actually improving, we do believe that this can actually serve better in the going forward. So, but still, it's just a matter of actually taking that the misconception of actually the manual dipstick and how accurate that compared to the systems as well. So that's basically in summary what's been happening here in Kuwait. It is improving, however, the loss and gain and the tank chart issues is still been persistent even up to the today. So
I think, Mr. Isa, it's not only Kuwait. I think all the region are having the similar issues. But why do you think like the supervisor and the supervisor at the site, they still believe that the manual dipstick reading are more accurate than the ATG system?
Okay, there is an see. I don't know about the other countries, but in Kuwait there is something interesting. The manpower staff that you see in the station, they've been the same team. There's been the same people who've been working there for the last 10, 15 years. So it's a kind of a sector where the manpower does not have that high of a turnover in terms of the manpower. So people don't really change.
Okay.
So, and whoever is there on a site level then gets promoted and he's more or less on a supervisor level. So he's still the same mentality and way of thinking. So it is that struggle. Now, we went through sessions where we actually use different gauging mechanism and technologies where the results are always this, but you can feel the people not comfortable and say, you know what, I'm gonna go and take the station to take the manual dipstick measurement and basically and then and in some cases they will actually take the manual reading and they will go and adjust the tank gauging readings, so which created this, apart from the fact they're shutting down the station, so there is a loss of sale. So I mean, you can see how this goes and how the impact basically propagates within the organization. Now, organizations and the those companies are aware. They've been working on it, but we haven't been seeing consistency of actually sticking to the measures. You see them using the technology for a long time, and all of a sudden it slips. You start noticing the sites started to use the manual dipsticks here and there. We reached a point where we took out the manual dipstick basically tools from the sites for us to know that the supervisor would actually got their own
Oh,
to
okay.
do it. So
That's funny. So yeah, I think that's really funny. Like they will change the ATG reading based on the manual reading. So which
yes,
is that,
yes.
that's interesting. Okay, so there is a questions from one of the audience about for Gurab. This is for Gurab. Thank you so much, Mr. Isa.
Thank you very
So
much.
Gurab, so you talked about the tank calibration using data and our system. What's the difference between the tank calibration using data and the 3D laser tank calibration?
Yes, sure. I mean, so thanks for that question. I think the way to look at calibration and the differences between the laser calibration and us is with the laser calibration, of course, it's a higher cost. We also have to take the tank out of use and do the calibration, and it's like a one-off process. Where we are different to tank gauge calibration is or a laser calibration is we do it based on our data. So we are actually capturing the data at a continuous basis. And we use that range of exercising of the tank. And using that range, we calibrate the tank. Uh, and it's not one off. You are not taking the site out of use. So there are some clear benefits as to what a laser calibration can do versus our cloud calibration. Again, reiterating on the fact that it is not a one-off process. If we start seeing new data range and new changes and new changes to the variance, we can provide new strapping tables, and the system is automated. So it goes through a process of um, improving the calibration. And we expose it on the platform to see how the data is looking. Once we are satisfied, we can apply the uh, tank gauge calibration on virtually. And if you're happy, we can even provide it to a third party for essentially pushing that chart to the gate. So you would see that impact, and you're not taking the tank out of use. So there are some clear benefits there as well.
Yeah. So one of the questions from the audience: what is the minimum timeline for the tank gauge devices to be for the tank chart to be generated?
Yes, so it depends on the data and the quality. So before you calibrate, of course, you're trying to ensure that the data is correct, there are no leakages in place as well. So there is some analysis period involved as well. So in terms of timeline, we would say anywhere between 60 to 90 days. Again, depending on the data quality, it could be faster as well if the data is much better.
Yeah. Okay. So just to wrap up before we answer all the questions, so just take out notes on what we talked about in this session, which is, so we explained a lot about the challenges for the various control that everyone is facing here in the Middle East and Africa, and also for also the compliances, how it's important, especially with the new regulations. So just a call to action for everyone. If you would like to use Titan Cloud Soft platform, you are able to submit up to 3 sites of manual data. So here we will give you a calculation of your variances for those sites using one of our solutions. We call it SD. So the SD, it will require minimum data, which is doesn't require, which is like total sales, total sales, and deliveries, and one like daily in ATG reading, or also dipstick reading, whatever. So yeah, so if you can submit all of that, we will be able to share with you the variances that you have in those sites, and any contract resulting from this. It will we will have the first quarter of that free of charge. So just to answer the questions, there is a lot of question to. There is one question to Mr. Isa. So Mr. Isa, from a business perspective, do you believe that fuel retailers really need to adopt new cloud technology now to achieve a measurable and improvement, or can they still operate effectively with the legacy systems?
See, I'm an advocate of actually going for technology, yes, because I still believe that there is a percentage of human error that exists. And with how technology is progressing and how we keep improving, at the end of the day, you eliminate the human factor and the legacy system by taking out the emotional or the person perception out of the equation, because at the end of the day, this is numbers. So you don't and you remove the part where you be biased with regards to numbers. And so it is more or less going to the technology, because the technology keeps improving. It's not like how it used to 20 years ago. It keeps improving. There is an improvement on daily basis. There is a new thing happening. 2 years ago, we've been hearing about AI. Now we can actually see AI going into the platforms, whether it's starting cloud or any other system. So th- again, in my opinion, yes,
Yeah,
it is the best way.
okay. That's great. And also the second part of the question that you're asking, which is, do you think the industry should create a centralized body for where all operators can share experiences and benchmark and latest challenges? Uh,
Uh, I and personally, yes, I think that's going to be very helpful, because it's more or less an official forum for people to exchange experience. I think there are some who are there already in the world, but it's not emphasized. I mean, something is similar like this webinar is very useful. So I think yes, it's very essential to have something like that.
that's great. So okay. So a question to Gura. So from your technical view, what are the most common configuration issues that cause inaccurate ATG variances or false alarms? And how does Starting Cloud detect and prevent these technical errors before the escalate?
Okay, yeah. Thank you for that question. So it depends generally. There are some. It also depends on some of the market practices, but what I would say the most common one that we see is customers not even having a raw, like a manufacturers tank charts. Sometimes they just put in blanket tank charts which were acquired from another site. So it's the wrong initial configuration that was put on a tank gauge. That's one of the common ones, and then rolling that out to across the state. That is one critical one that I see. And there's a similar practice on the dipsticks as well. And again, the dipsticks get passed on from site to site. They're not actually customized for the tank. So those are some of the issues that we see generally. Where Titan Cloud comes in is, we do take the initial tank chart as just a raw reading. We don't do anything with that in terms of changing that. We use our own data on top of that to essentially come up with a better tank calibration. So that's where some of the differences are. So you do need like the basic capacity information, maybe a tank diameter as well, and based on that we would, and the data collection that we are doing, we would produce a new strapping chart for the customer.
Thank you so much, Greg. Mr. Sabur, I think there's a question about Saudi Arabia. He's talking about like uh, every time when a variance is spotted, 90% of the people are suspected of tank leak or line leakages. Why do you believe that's the case? Like even though some of the sites there have double wall tanks, but also whenever there's like variances, they will always go to there is some leakages happen at the site.
Yeah, I tell you very interesting thing. It's not only Saudi Arabia. It's across the Gulf market, I would say. I have experienced the same thing. People think that if there is a variance, there is a loss in the tank because they have a feeling it's actually from the past experience. Because if we go back 20 years, single wall tanks, GI tanks, never replaced. They were in buried there for many years before, and tank used to fail a lot. If there is a line leak, they will know that certain nozzle or certain dispenser is giving a negative variance. So usually it's a common thing that they suspect the tank. There is another reason nowadays, which is, as I mentioned, that there are a lot of operating station, 3,500 almost, which are to be converted to licensed companies. So once this company goes and signs the contract and takes over the station, tank changing is a big hassle. It's a capex and legislative. There are permits involved. There are capex involved. There is downtime. So they try to avoid it. So what they do is that they try to cut corners and do nitrogen testing. Normally, this nitrogen testing is not robust. It doesn't give you exact, health of the tank. If you are not using sophisticated equipments, you are not getting proper health check of the tank. So if they see that okay, tank is passing the nitrogen test, they just believe okay, test tank is okay. But later down the line, there are normally failures in tanks. So that's also a reason that due to various occurrences where the tanks have leaked and are leaking, so they believe that tank leaking is a major problem. But it cannot be the case always. As I explained you. There is one example I just quoted from the last 2 weeks I experienced. They suspected that the tank is leak, but the leak was in the delivery line. Similarly, I would also recall an incident in Oman when I was working over there. There was a flash fire incident in the tank sump because when the car was moving over the tank sump, there was a flash fire, and the immediate suspect was that there is a leak in the tank. Because of that, the vapors are accumulating and it's coming. But believe me, this was because of there was a loose fitting in the ATG socket. So that loose fitting was creating a lot of vapors during, specifically in the decantation time, because the fuel was volatile in that is the most fluid condition of the fuel. So it creates a lot of vapors at that time, and those vapors were getting an easy escape through the ATG socket, and those were accumulating in the tank sump. And this particular site was on a downhill of a wadi, so the people were using a lot of
Mm,
brakes when going down. So the discs were pretty hot at that time. And I remember one of the Lexus passed over it, and I had a video. It just flash
See.
fired.
Okay,
So, and the immediate suspect for the next 2 weeks was tank, until we did a tank testing. We did the pressure testing of each and everything, and then we found that there is a leak on the top of the ATG fitting.
okay. So there is also one question for you, Mr. Sapor. Just with your extensive experience in the fuel solution and operations, what do you see as the main business driving pushing digital ATG adoption, reducing loss, cutting maintenance cost, improving uptime? Which optional metrics do you see most measure success from implementing a digital transformation in fuel network? What
Yeah,
do you
very
feel?
good question actually. This is where the lack of awareness also comes in. People don't know that actually it's not a matter of installing a good ATG will solve the problem. And if you see the Saudi market, there are various equipment suppliers. There is namely PTS, DOMS, Fusion. Many Chinese companies are also coming up. But if the ATG doesn't know what is your accurate tank chart, ATG will not give you a good rating. That's it's a device. It's like you are converting a manual dip into an electronic dip. That's it. So installing a ATG, companies normally think that installation of an ATG will solve the problem, but it doesn't. Normally, it doesn't. Also, not on the companies of the fuel operators, the authorities also now in KSA, it's mandatory to install ATG device, be it any brand. They just ask that is your ATG installed? If it is installed, they see the device there, it is working, they just tick the box. But I've seen people bypassing ATG over there in the sites. They bypass because they want to steal the fuel, or they have some unknown hidden variances. They just want to hide behind the data. So they do bypass the system. But there are never, I have seen never there are accurate tank charts. So now the good companies, what they try to do is that they try to involve companies who do the tank calibration with the devices like Calibex, like Start Italiana. They are laser calibration devices. Again, it's a data quality issue. I have seen the tanks which have ribs inside. So the if there is an hindrance in the site of the laser, it will not give you a very healthy tank chart, but still it will give you some data points. Now, this activity requires tank emptying, number one. Number two, most of the cases, some devices may not be requiring tank emptying, but most of the devices they require tank emptying, and also a downtime during this entire activity. Thirdly, there is an HSE risk. You are working in a hazard zone. So you are having a cost for the company who is doing the tank calibration. You are having a downtime at that time, and you are having the sale loss. So going to a digital solution and reliable digital solution is making all the sense at this time. You just wait for, as Gaurav mentioned, you have to wait for certain duration to give the data points, and then the system starts building up a accurate tank chart, and you feed that tank chart back into the system to give you more reliance on the readings. So this is a point where companies can save cost. They don't need to pay a hefty money to these people, and also this money has to be recurring. 3 months, 6 months, maybe 1 year down the line, they would have to redo the tank calibration, and again there will be a financial loss of the sale closure. So this can be avoided with some digital solution.
Thanks everyone for joining us for this webinar, and yeah, have a nice day.